Welcome back to my NFL 2022 Exit Report series. I believe this is team number 8, and today is Saturday. So I appreciate it if you're watching live on Saturday. But of course, if you're not, no problem. We're going to have this out and available. All the exit previews are going to be available during the so-called off season that we have. So today, being Saturday, I have a special guest, and it's my pleasure to have Jeff Dawson from EC Sports Investors. I've been a guest on his show. He's been so gracious to have me on, and I get a chance to turn the tables and try to play host in his backyard in terms of the New England Patriots. So first, Jeff, how are you, and are you staying warm?
We have survived. Woke up this morning. It was 6 below, wind chill minus 30. I didn't sign up for Lambeau Field. I mean, my backdrop here is of Gillette Stadium, which is about 1 hour north of where I am on Cape Cod. In our lanes, it's called survive in advance. Wake up in the morning, your feet hit the ground. We got 24 hours to make a difference. And you had reached out to me and said, what about Saturday? And if I had to take a snowmobile here, I would have made sure I was here.
Well, I really appreciate it. And before we really get started on the team that you really have a pulse on, and that's the New England Patriots. All those years with Brady, you guys have been spoiled. But talk a little bit about what you do and what your shows are about and EC Sports Investing.
January 1st, 2015, we launched East Coast Sports Investors. We went on all social media platforms, on Twitter, becoming that sports investor. We've never used the word gambling. We never would. For 18 straight months, we were chastised. The trolls came out double-fisted. Who were you talking about sports investing? You're just gambling like the rest of us. Well, we had our eyes through the trees and projected at some point PASPA would pass, and it did in 2018. And then next thing you know, everyone became a sports investor. 2020 mass passed and legalized sports wagering. And this past Tuesday, January 31st, 2023, we made our first live wager. We're 2-0 currently at the window, Ron, for placing some wagers. We went to Plainridge. Encore is available, and MGM in Springfield is available. And coming March Madness, there'll be 10 live apps and 2 other brick and mortars up taking wagers. But what we are is your personalized sports broker. We read the sports market like someone reads a ticker that does stocks, and we have 50 sports books all around the world that we follow every movement, every alert, every referee, you name it, we get it, and we follow it. And we give out information on a daily basis on our releases, our liens to clients all over the world that get it via text, via email for as little as $3 a day.
Fantastic. And I got to say, I'm 0-0. I've never lost a bet in California legalized sports betting because we don't have it.
And I'm hearing it's going to take an act of God probably to pass it. There's so many legalities, and I guess the Indians and stuff have a good grasp on it. So listen, you're just a hopper away over to Las Vegas. I'll take the trip to Vegas every time.
Yeah, it is an enjoyable trip, and I'll be retired by the time California gets it. Let's get into New England now. Think back, Jeff, to the end of 2021. My feeling was at that point, great year for a rookie quarterback, especially to go into that particular system where he has an established coach, an established offensive line, a good system, the number 2 defense against the pass at 59%. So he gets the ball often. The usual good special teams to great special teams, the usual plus turnover ratio. How are you feeling a year ago today, a year ago at this time with New England?
I think you're spot on. Rookie quarterback, the only quarterback drafted in that class that made the playoffs. So that was hats off. for the Patriots, Bill, Mac, and the rest of the team. But if you peeled the onion back a little further, they really got exposed the last game of the season against Buffalo, and that's the regular season, and then the playoff game against Buffalo. Those two games combined, if you had over a half for the punter for Buffalo, you would have lost that ticket. Buffalo didn't punt either one of those games, so there was some chinks in the armor. And then really the off season where you got a second year quarterback, Mac, who is looking for help. He wants to make that next jump. And Bill and the Patriots did what corporate Bill and the Patriots did. And they took two free coaches, Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, both being paid from the Lions and the Giants, and they brought them on board. And it really slowed down the process.
Yeah, I put down at the banner, the scrolling banner there. New England loses Josh McDaniels, and it's big when you lose somebody with over a decade of consecutive experience there, where he knows the system. He was almost trained to be a coach in waiting, and like you said, then they make some, I call it, interesting decisions to have Matt Patricia and Joe Judge be so involved. I know Bill's involved, but Bill's more of a defensive mind, and he'll be hands-on, at least from my perspective, 3,000 miles away with the defense. Offensively, it just didn't seem to click, and I had some mixed feelings about how that was going to work.
Yeah, you bring up Josh McDaniels, and if I'm going to be open and honest here, for 2 decades, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. Again, for our business especially, it's about cashing tickets. It's not about wins and losses. So I always say to everyone that wants to listen, I leave my heart and my ego at the door. It's all about numbers. And as you do so well, breaking down the data. So back here, it was in Bill We Trust. It was Tom Brady. It was 2 decades. As you said, behind the scenes, we were spoiled back here. And then it became the chicken and the egg. Is it Bill? Is it Tom? Well, the truth be told, neither one could have done what they did without each other. So Josh McDaniels now was on a plane heading to Indy to take the job a few years ago. And what ended up happening was, the way I understand it, was he caught wind that Andrew Luck was 50-50. He was coming back or not. Now, the story that's brought out here is that Tom Brady went to Bob Kraft and said, Tom says, hey, I need him back here, because the relationship between Tom and Bill started to get a little salty here. And so Bob goes out, reaches out to Josh on the plane. Hey, we want to talk. They pulled them back. Well, Tom was on the decline. They drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, and then all of a sudden, the rebirth of Tom Brady, first one in, last one out. Hey, that's my parking spot. And then eventually the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Bob goes to Bill and says very nicely, you got to move Jimmy. We're all set. Tom's our quarterback. And instead of moving him to Cleveland and getting a king's ransom, he moves it somewhere, a soft landing spot in San Francisco, and the rest is history. So the Josh McDaniels, Josh knew last year he had to make a move or he was going to lose his window. So I said all along, you can take the 617 and bring him to the 702, which is Vegas. Nothing's going to change. And everyone looked and laughed at me and said, what are you talking about, Jeff? Nothing changed. Nothing changed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. So one of the things we talked offline before we started the show is that how coaches adapt. Nick Saban, a friend of Bill Belichick, he adapted, changed to a speed-oriented system. I always thought, and you mentioned that Buffalo didn't punt, that there was beginning to be separation between New England and Buffalo based on speed, based on scheme, and so on. And so what I think happened is that Bill Belichick has realized that a lot of teams are drafting for speed now, and he tried his hand at the draft, and he drafted a couple of players, one in the defensive secondary and one a smallish wide receiver, but also a kick returner, to go ahead and jumpstart a little bit to start getting some speed onto the offense. But overall, I thought the draft was disappointing. They drafted 2 running backs. At the beginning of the year, from my point of view, they had 4, maybe even 5 running backs in the room. And that's a position that doesn't move the needle. Offensive guard doesn't move the win needle. Defensive tackle doesn't move the win needle. What were your thoughts after the draft? And maybe what were your thoughts in terms of, okay, now we've gotten to May, June, July. How are you starting to form your opinions about where New England stood as we approached week 1?
Bill has a history of not drafting well. The locals in our studio right now, I have one of the TVs that I can kind of take a look out, and I always have it on 98.5 between 2 and 6 o'clock because that's when Felger and Maz are on, and they're always talking about how bad Bill has done in the draft. And you talked about looking at all the holes that the Bills poked into them last year, the last 2 games, and you talked about speed. And it's almost like I want to compare it this way, Ron. We're in the NCAA Final Four, and in comes a Big Ten team or in comes a Notre Dame, and they got to face a Georgia or an Alabama, and we just shake our heads. And that's where this has been going. We can see this with our own eyes. And evaluating talent and drafting talent, the Patriots have not done well. This is a team that had Demaryius Thomas all lined up and traded back. They had big-time wide receivers at the helm and traded back. This is a team that stuck in their lanes and drafted Sony Michel. A couple of years later, he's gone. The wide receiver that we took in the first round that was a flop from Arizona State, who's now with the Bears, he's gone. So drafting talent has been a big issue. Add Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. It was a train wreck waiting to happen, Ron.
Yeah. Well, you laid it out pretty much correctly in terms of what was going on there. They're just started to slip just a little at the same time that their divisional rivals were getting a little better. Now, for me, I go in and I put my seasonal keys on my team sheets, and I'm going to put them up one by one, and you can talk about them. Basically, it all led to me sitting on the sidelines before the season because I just had them as another 9-8 team. I love the scheme. I love how fundamentally sound New England plays, especially defensively. They're not fast in the secondary. A lot of those guys are showing some age, but they know exactly where they need to be on every play. So on a positive side, if you look at just Pathag ratings, this was a team that finished, what were they like? I can't even remember already. 9-8, is that what they got? No, 10-7 in 2021. But they outscored opponents by almost 160 points. Mm-hmm. Typically, that's a 12-5, even a 13-14. So right away, even with the now a second place schedule, they have a chance to actually have been underrated just based on Pythag theorem only, not on roster, not on anything else. I like to combine it. Some people just use Pythag by itself, but that was a positive sign for me. Any thoughts there?
I think you're 100% spot on. And I think the start of the conversation is even better. Even though the numbers added up, I think the division just got that much stronger, if that makes sense. We knew Buffalo was there. We had a feeling the Dolphins were coming. And I was on a show in August where I said that the Patriots were going to finish last in the division with the Jets ahead of them. And I looked pretty damn good for most of the season there, obviously. But I think the Jets are also moving in the right direction. So back in the day, the Patriots would win the East going away. They would have their bye week, and the tomato can would come in. 10, 11-point underdogs in the first round for them in the playoffs. They would win, and the Patriots would have one game to get to the Super Bowl, and it was usually in Gillette. Yeah. So I think the numbers and everything you're saying is spot on, but I think there was a lot more variables, if this makes sense, where you could see the other teams rising, if not equal, ahead of them as well.
Yeah, so everything that we've been discussing makes a lot of sense in terms of worry signs, danger signs. But I still like the scheme, still like the fact that they look pretty good in 2021. But I mentioned down there with the tricky schedule. It wasn't one of those that the NFL said, here, New England, we love you anymore. It was that -10 rest differential. So teams were going to have more rest than they do, which kind of turns the tables on Bill Belichick, who kind of thrives when he gets extra time to put together a game plan, because unlike some of the other vanilla teams, his game plans will vary from week to week, which is one of the things that I like. But one of the other problems I had with them, in addition to a tough first 4 games, is that there was some tape on their quarterback now. So rookie quarterbacks, they can make a second-year leap like Trevor Lawrence did, but they can also be exposed because other teams have seen what they've done. And they had a little bit of random luck. This is kind of a weird area that I'm going to give to you, but because New England is so good on special teams, but opposing kickers were 22 out of 33 in 2021 in making their field goals. That's random, in my opinion. So you're going to get 3 more points here, 3 more points there. That's unusual that kickers would be so poor against them. Again, overall, I didn't have a season win ticket over or under on them. Is there anything you did before the season in terms of a season win ticket or a future play?
I was looking and searching for unders every which way but loose, not to make the playoffs. Myself and Julian Edlow at DraftKings, we put together that Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots ticket. That was plus 1,400. DraftKings gifted me with. Obviously, ended up not working out, but I was the guy against it. It was more, you could hear a lot of bad stuff going on during the preseason and then the OTAs and then leading up to August 1st. And there was a lot of bickering going on. There was no titles given, whether it was Pat Patricia, whether it was Joe Judge. There was no OC, DC, quarterbacks coach, and nothing. So there was a lot of turmoil, Ron, going on in the camps in August. And so if you could have found any kind of unders, that's where we were leading all the ECSI followers towards.
Okay. So the season goes on. They start 6-4 heading into Thanksgiving. How did you feel about the way the season was playing out up to this point? And then what happened after Thanksgiving where the writing was on the wall? This team was going to be hard pressed to make the playoffs.
That's a great question, because you look at 6-4, you look at Thanksgiving, and historically, Bill Belichick teams at this spot usually go and cheat. They go undefeated. They might lose one game here and there, and then it was the exact opposite. We had, and I'm drawing a blank here. Was that during the Mac Jones getting hurt? Was that during the rise of the backup there for 2 weeks? The game that sticks out the most to me, which was a eye opener, and I think it was before then. It was the Monday night game when the Bears came in and they just ran ramp shot. I mean, the Patriots were like 8 or 9 point favorites, and Justin Fields looked like Jalen Hurts. He could do no wrong. And it was an eye opener for us, but taking it to there, I think the writing was on the wall, whether it was the schedule. I know they had to go out west, I think, and they were going to stay out there for 2 games. And then they had to come back and they had to face some tough East opponents. So I'm not sure off the top of my head the week that Mac got hurt because we were struggling at quarterback. And when was he? He didn't have the surgery. And when was he going to, come back? And Bill was pressing him on it after week number 2. Are you ready? Are you ready? So he actually even came back earlier. And it just didn't look good. It didn't feel good. And we were just waiting for the train crash.
You're right. Bailey Zappi, he 29-0 against Detroit, 38-15 against Cleveland. And then once Jones came back, everybody thought, okay, he beats Indianapolis, who has its own share of problems, of course, 26-3. But then the back-to-back games that you mentioned, you were spot on that. And then they come back and they have to play Cincinnati, who's really thriving, excuse me, at that time. So a lot of things were going on that caused the writing on the wall. And basically, there was still separation for me between New England and Buffalo. Buffalo beat them twice by double digits, and you can see the writing on the wall in terms of that. I had some surprises. They were still playing fundamentally sound ball. They still had a top 3 pass defense. But you may want to comment on my 3 surprises here. I did not expect New England to have, 54 defensive sacks. They really ramped up the pressure. That's usually Bill is not a big blitzer, at least from where I standpoint. So 54 was really fantastic. But on the flip side, there were 2 other surprises for me, and that's pass protection broke down a little. I'm so used to seeing Brady being sacked 25 to 30 times. Even last year, without Brady, they were sacked just 28 times with a rookie quarterback. And the number spiked over 40. I think it was 41 is what I have. 41, a little bit more than that. That surprised me. And my biggest shock, because I know how Bill Belichick scours the nation and he's hands-on and he goes to all these pro days. Special teams play dropped off. They were mediocre, middle of the pack. Comment on this and any other surprises in the metrics that you saw during the 2022 season.
Well, the sacks, off the top of my head, I would have to say Mr. Judon had a lot to do with that. He hands down was their best player this year, not just defensively. When you take a real step back and what he did, the havoc that he caused when he was on the field, if not pressuring and hitting quarterbacks, he was definitely sacking quarterbacks. Also, the defense had, I think it was a 6 or 7 straight week where they had a score, whether it was a pick six, whether it was a fumble recovery, kickoff return, or punt return, anything of that. So again, taking more pressure off the offense, which was actually kind of correlating with the wins when you got to that 6-4 point before they started to drop and face a tougher schedule. Had a few hiccups on the field kicking game. Nick Folk, Mr. Reliable, had a little struggle down the stretch. It all adds up. And when you get spoiled and accustomed to the Patriots, either winning or right there in the division, obviously making the playoffs and usually winning that first round. Since Tom has left, it hasn't happened. And so it leaves you scratching your head. And someone like yourself, with all that data and how you look at the numbers, it has to be a head scratcher because some of these numbers are still saying, the numbers are saying here that the Pats should be in the playoffs. They should be right there with Buffalo. It's not happening.
A lot of close games, some inexperience early in the year that they just couldn't pull out. One was a random loss that really shouldn't have happened. But it's not one of those, hey, we're going to dominate anymore. Every game and every result matters in order to make the playoffs. And it's going to be interesting moving forward because I admit I was very light on games that I played for or against New England during the year. I was kind of on the fence. I didn't feel that either my numbers or my eye test showed me that I had a strong feeling about games as it played out during the season that, yes, I have to back them in this case, or I have to go against them. I think my record was something like 1-1 on them and 1-1 against them. It was a very quiet year for me with New England. So now it's February 4th, 2023. And we have another new offensive coordinator. We're trying to fix some things. He's a new old offensive coordinator, right? We got Bill O'Brien back in the building there. We got Bill Belichick already out on the streets looking at different tape. I think he's really going to revamp that special team unit. That unit that allowed almost 26 yards per kick return, which is very un-New England-like. What's your thoughts on Bill O'Brien right now, and any other changes that you see or that I missed in terms of where we are now?
Before Bill came, Gerard Mayo kind of made, hey, I'm going to Cleveland for an interview, and all the rumors was Cleveland was going to hire him basically on the spot. They stepped in and said, not so fast. And the initial thought process there was he stuck and stayed, where they were giving him stick and stay here. We're going to give you a big title, and eventually, potentially, you could be the predecessor to Bill Belichick, which now rumblings this week. There's not going to be a title, and that's a stay tuned there. Bill O'Brien, I was talking about since August, September, October. He was the guy that was going to be the one coming back. I knew Alabama was going to look for a scapegoat. I knew they weren't happy. Bill O'Brien and a lot of the staff there on the offensive side was the ones moving on, and Bill comes here. Now, the funny story is people want to say, oh, that he's reuniting with Mac Jones. Well, Mac Jones was done. Mac Jones was teaching Bill O'Brien during spring ball the Alabama way and the Alabama system. So I know two people that are very happy right now, Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones. He is excited. They finally put someone in place that's going to help him hopefully take the offense and Mac to the next level. But they have a lot of people on the free agent market. A lot of free agents on their team. What are they going to do? Jacoby Myers, I'm not saying he's going to get the Christian Kirk deal, 18, 19 million, but I think someone's going to go out and give him 15 per 60 million, maybe 30, 35 guaranteed there. Damian Harris, which again, the emergence of Stevenson, the Strongs of the world that they drafted, who they really like. Do they bring him back? I heard all year that they weren't. So they have a lot of offensive players that they have to make a decision. Nelson Aguilar, who I think will not come back. You talked about the Tyler Thornton kid that they drafted, who they really, really like. So they have a lot of big decisions to make in free agency, and it's going to be interesting for sure.
Does McCourty come back? Is there any sign that he might retire?
He's going to retire. And now so, it's not etched in stone, but the rumblings are after that Buffalo game, there was headshots of him with his head down and stuff. I think we've seen the last of McCourty.
That institutional memory that he brings to the secondary, that might be missed.
Oh, 100%. I have the list in front of me here. Jonathan Jones, Isaiah Wynn, Matthew Slater, Jabril Peppers, Marcus Cannon, Cardona, Damian Harris. It's a list where they have to dig in. The Patriot way is this, Ron. You sign your rookie deal and you lived up to your rookie deal. They bring you into the office and they can't thank you enough. Ron, you are the ultimate Patriot. Now, here's the deal. We have slotted in our spreadsheet that we're willing to pay you $7.5 million per year for the next 4 years. But we know if you go outside and leave, someone's going to pay you $9.5, $10, $11 million per year. So when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, you either took the Patriots offer because you had an opportunity to win or go to a Super Bowl every year, or go take the money. Well, the Patriots don't have that anymore. There's no guarantee that they're going to win the division, never mind make the playoffs, never mind get to the Super Bowl. So that dance that they used to do, the luster is gone.
Yeah. I'd like to see them make at least one or two. They don't have to break the bank like a Jacksonville or whatever, but I'd like to see them make one or two splash free agent hires. I'd like to see them get a true number one wide receiver, somebody who they can manage, maybe not a diva type, but a hardworking wide receiver. Maybe they can even bring a Brandon Cooks back, who they rented for a couple of years, and he helped them get to the Super Bowl. And then I think they're going to need somebody again, not necessarily with a pass rush, because they demonstrated they were able to bring a lot of people, sack quarterbacks to a record number really for New England, but somebody in the secondary that could be kind of a teacher, somebody who's been a 7-10 year veteran. Supplement that with maybe a little bit better draft. And again, from my point of view, a little bit faster draft where you have some quicker players that you're scouting in terms of who you're bringing in the second, third, fourth round. That would be my take.
DeAndre Hopkins is supposed to be the guy in free agency at wide receiver. I heard rumors maybe Judy's available. The problem with DeAndre Hopkins is Bill O'Brien was the head coach of the Texans. He traded DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh yeah.
So the thought of him coming is like slim to none. The one name, if I'm a GM, and I use the Chicago Bears as example, who have the number one pick, who don't need a quarterback, T. Higgins is available for the right price, because they're gonna have to pay Jamar Chase. They're gonna have to pay Joe. They still have Tyler Boyd. They have other pieces there. They're taking offers for T. Higgins. So any offensive team that is looking for a true number one, call Cincinnati, because the price, he is available for the right price. That's the guy. But I know the Patriots way. There's no way that they're giving up the assets to get a T. Higgins.
T. Higgins is a special player. I would agree with that completely. You've done this to me on Tuesdays. I get to turn the table on you on Tuesday. It's your floor. What's your closing thoughts in terms of where we are, and what would you like to say? What have you held back on?
Well, first and foremost, Ron, I can't thank you enough. We were blessed to have you on every week on our show, and God willing, hopefully next year we will circle the wagons back and have year number 2 with you. And I've also said to some of your colleagues that you do shows with, Vegas, Chris, and everyone else, the more the merrier. So whatever we want to do, I thank you. We thank you here at East Coast Sports Investors. From a Patriots point of view, the Tom Brady's not coming back. I had the conspiracy theory where maybe Jimmy G was coming back. He's not coming back. It's Mac, it's Bill O'Brien, and now what are we going to do for the pieces? I think they don't bring back Damian Harris. I think they go with Stevenson, with Strong. Maybe they'll draft the running back in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round there. Wide receiver, unless Jacoby takes a hometown discount, I don't see him coming back. I'd like to see them figure out what happened to Kendrick Bourne there. Keep an eye on Hunter Renfrow. I'm hearing Hunter Renfrow and maybe Darren Waller are also going to be available. I can't see anyone spending the money for Waller. Hunter Renfrow reminds me of a Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, someone of that ilk that would be there for Mac on the quick hitters. Hunter Henry, if healthy, perfect tight end for you. The Jonnu Smith era is over. That was wasted money for 2 years there. Defensively, get faster, get stronger. They're going to have some big pieces and some big veteran leadership to replace. They're in a division where the Bills are going nowhere. Miami's going nowhere. And the Jets are a Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr away from the Patriots, in my eyes, in my perspective, definitely looking up at those three. So it's going to be a real tricky offseason for them. It's a big, big draft for them. I will be tagging you throughout this process. to keep everyone afloat of what I'm hearing, what my eyes are seeing, and I can't wait.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Defend running quarterbacks. They got to do a little bit better job of defending running quarterbacks as well.
Yes,
Jeff, I thank you so much for appearing with me in my NFL Exit Report series. You are the pulse of New England, so I appreciate all your comments here. I think those who haven't followed Jeff should follow him, because this is not just football. You go year round. I take a break, except for doing behind the scenes work. You hit the grind daily. So follow him year round. Go ahead and see what he has to offer. You've got so many different podcasts on so many different topics. So whatever sport people are interested in, you could find it with Jeff. Thank you so much. And we're going to conclude this one, but we're moving on to another division. My next division will be the AFC West. We've got some very interesting teams to discuss there. I'll have a couple of more special guests on with me. And so until next time, for the NFL Exit Report series, thanks again, Jeff. We will see you down the road.
Thank you.